this guidance method takes a little time, and the dog got to decide to do the right thing. But when you don't have the time for that, then you're going to use a more snap out of it kind of pressure. Okay. Or if your choice is either the dog runs into the road, or I'm going to use more pressure here, then you want to choose the higher pressure.
Okay.
Right? But we prefer the lower guidance method because at that point the dog is not being forced to do anything. The dog is just simply giving a clear message, a thumbs up when there's a loose leash, because it's going to be no pressure. And when there's a tight leash, thumbs down, you're not doing right because I'm going to start harassing you a little bit. Yeah. Not hurting, not, because we don't want the dog to be afraid of this.
Control.
This is used in the military to get the dogs to do things and not be afraid and keep up all their drive and happiness and enthusiasm to do the work that we need that's going to save lives.
Okay, yeah.
So that's kind of where it comes from.
I'm not opposed to that collar method at all. I know some people are going, oh no, you're not training my dog with a shock collar.
I'm going to do a video with the taser and show the differse.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Not the same.
Not at all.
So before I start using the electronic collar, because you're not going to really get to see what's going on, I can show you through the leash. All right, so anytime I tug the leash, imagine that to be a tap on the e-collar.
Okay.
All right? So loose leash, we're good to go. He's doing okay, I'm doing okay. When he tightens the leash, I start applying this pressure. And yes, I can muscle him in like that, but that's not the idea. I want him to do it on his own. Okay?
That's where I'm at with him. I'm trying to muscle him, and it's not working.
And he's being good right now, probably because, I'm new. But here we go. And so I don't pull him in. I just apply this pressure repeatedly until he decides to come in. Give me a loose leash. And if he's gonna be 2 minutes stubborn, I'm gonna be 2.5 minutes stubborn. Okay.
And that's what he does.
Okay. So I stop him. He doesn't understand. I don't know if he understands the word no. I could try it, but
He doesn't
not
understand no, but the first time that I ever had him on a leash like this, on a web leash, he chewed it and he got loose.
Okay. So right now he's not responding to no, so I apply pressure until he lets go. It's kind of bug on me.
He thinks you're playing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he does.
So then this. Okay, because he's not going to respond to words. Even if he knew the command, he might not know it from me. So physical stuff. At the lowest pressure possible. Too low, they don't care. Too much pressure, in any method I use, they're not going to get the right message. So start starting again like this.
So you try to apply the pressure so it's just a little bit of deterrent to chewing
Well,
on
his
that?
lips go against his teeth, so
Okay.
he's less likely to bite down. And then but I'm also going light, so going light, I'm not really forcing him to stop because he wants to continue, but he's got to decide. That's why I like to use the lowest amount of pressure, because then the dog decides that, makes a choice. If you're using high pressure, there's not much thinking involved. It's just he's going to be afraid to bite it. It's not what I want. Many people think that works because yes, it will stop the behavior, but the reason for stopping is because he's afraid to do it, because he's afraid to get hurt. What we're doing here is he's choosing, and he's not afraid. That's what I want. So it's kind of like a visual example. Now I'm going to start doing the same stuff, pressure with this rather than leash or my hand, but in the same method, lowest level possible, and more stubborn than the dog. He's going to fight for 10 seconds, I can go 11 seconds, and that's all you need.
She's here with the 2 dogs now. Can you see that? To go around the corner. They're huge.
Alright, so right now I've got 2 rules. If he breaks any rule, then I start applying pressure until he acts right. And I increase the pressure until he responds. Too little pressure, he's not going to quite get it. And then once I find the right pressure, I stop there. Because if I go above, we're not going to be communicating with him correctly. He's going to start being afraid.
So because that's what I did when I used the vibration collar on him. When he started barking, I said no bark, and then if he continued to bark, then I gave him the vibration and I said no bark.
So right now my rules are no tension on the leash and no biting the leash. If he breaks any of those rules, then I start applying pressure at the right level. And since I just met the dog, I always start on 0 and work up until I see him reacting. That's why it doesn't really matter what's on here. Right now it's on 8, by the way. 8 out of 127. Like I said, the 127 is probably not stronger than your e-collar. It's just that I got more increments in between.
Right, yeah,
so
like
from
that
1 to,
better.
if all you got is 1 to 7, then 3 could be too low, but 4 could be too high because you're lacking the in-between.
Okay. So
And
is
then
that the one that I should try and train him on at home?
something like this, and I'll show you a couple examples of this type.
Okay.
This method only works with this. If I see a sharp reaction like that,
Yep.
that's a signal to go low.
Okay.
We want to avoid that as much as possible. So I'm on 3. Sometimes, and this comes from experience, the sharp reaction is not out of, it's them being fussy. So you got to know when it's really, are you actually too high or are they just throwing a fit? Because I can't let them think that that reaction is going to stop it. The idea is to get him to understand that for him to turn this pressure off, he's got to give you a loose leash. He's got to respond. He's got to do
And is he
something.
coming to meetings and you're trying to protect him from that?
He knows you. You're his comfort zone. And what we're going to get at is when you take him for a walk, he should give you a loose leash. And if not, you're just going to apply it the same way you did the vibration, except now you're going to be using electronic at the right level, in the right time.
He was going to do it and then he decided not to.
Right. He's not. Working on level 1 right now. And I want him to kind of come in and give it to the leash. It's going to take some time. First time ever using this, I use this cup. He likes the comfort too, so I use that. Pressure this way. There we go. It gives me a loose leash, I stop the pressure. Alright. I tap. So, and it's easier for her when you come this direction than that direction. So I'll go back and forth. Help him a little bit with, coaxing him over. And eventually we fade away the help, and you just gotta understand, tight leash under any circumstance is not acceptable.
Good boy.
So now I think we can stop talking and just work the dog.
Okay.
So that's basically how it works, so you can know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
I just kind of like fake them out, I change different directions, and I create tension and looseness, and he's got just enough repetitions of, so he gets the message, tight leash is not as pleasant as a loose leash. So he's got to choose what he wants to do. And we're not forcing him. He's smart because he's figuring this out. What did I say, 10 minutes?
I've never seen him walk over me. I've never seen it. That's amazing.
It is amazing.
He's doing pretty good.
We're working on 1. 1 out of 127. You wouldn't even feel that. Would you feel it? 13 or so? So if you do see any kind of sharp reaction or he's probably just fussing. Because I know this is not. So applying the pressure is very important at the right timing, but what's even more important is when you stop the pressure, because that lets him know what the right behavior is. So right now, the two cues for me to stop is when he gives me a loose leash. I don't even care if he comes all the way to me. Just give me a loose leash. If he comes to me, then I'll reward him with petting. It's bonus. And then the other thing is when he lets go of the leash, as he likes to bite it, when he lets go, I stop. Just as important as if not more important than starting the pressure in the first place. Releasing it at the right time. Alright, now give him a break. We like to work in short sessions. My rule of thumb is 3 to 5. 3 to 5 minutes is kind of like your max. And it's basic stuff. It's very simple. So there's going to be a lot of me repeating the same things over and over again. It's just going to be for different situations. You're going to be able to apply this to sits, stays, downs, come when called, off-leash obedience. It's all based off the same simple principles. Breaks those rules, I apply pressure. As you add more rules, don't jump up, don't bump my knees, whatever it may be, you apply pressure at the right level, at the right timing, and when he stops doing that behavior you don't like, you take away pressure. When he stops, you stop. If he starts, you start. He's going to figure out that he's in control.
So I noticed that when he stops the pressure, he stops pulling and he comes back, you don't praise him.
This is called negative reward, or negative reinforcement. So positive reinforcement, when they're talking dog training, there's positive and negative reinforcement, positive and negative punishment. It doesn't mean good or bad. It means plus or minus, like mathematical terms. So a positive reward or a positive reinforcement would be I add a food, a treat, or I add petting, I add something to reward him. Negative reward is subtracting. I subtract this. So when he's misbehaving, this pressure starts when he gives in, when he does the right thing. I reward him by subtracting this, a negative reward. So actually I am rewarding him, and this is a reward-based system.
Right, okay.
Yep. And then, also, I don't want to confuse him with, see, I use praise and petting as a reward. That reward is extremely powerful. Right now he's very amped up. If you give too much, it's gonna increase the intensity.
Right.
Yes, he doesn't need that right now. Right now, the slightest good boy is more than enough for him.
Right. And that's why when, he started running towards me, that's why I didn't say, oh, come on.
And you were totally right to do so.
Yeah.
And
And as soon as you said treat him neutral, it's okay.
That's the reason.
Backing off,
That's the reason when we're training, I like to have my dogs wear a do not pet harness. And some people will think that's because the dogs are aggressive or the dogs, are shy or something. But no, it's because I train my dogs with talking and attention and affection as reward. So if people are giving it away for free, then they're rewarding God knows what kind of behavior.
Right. Exactly, yeah.
Because reward falls under the same principle. If you want to reward a dog for doing something right, you have to do it in that moment when he's doing something. So they make the association of this behavior and the reward. This behavior gets him a reward. If you reward him later for being, let's say he did really good for training today, and you want to give him some treats at the house,
he's not going to go 2 + 2.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing with bad behavior though. You can't give a reward later because they're not going to get it. So you definitely shouldn't give a punishment later. The dog knocks down the trash and gets all dirty in it.
Right.
And then you say, stop it, come here. And then, no, bad dog, blah, 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 whatever, punishment. Well, first, you missed the opportunity of him acting wrong. That would have been the moment to give the punishment, the scolding, whatever. Secondly, you said come when called, and he came.
And then you said bad dog.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
So in the instances like that, if you miss the opportunity, you must let it go. Even if you're not very happy about how things went, you gotta let it go.